This conference will now be recorded.
I think I need to start all over. It is now 7:34. We will begin the notice of the special meeting of the Rhome City Council, Wednesday, January the 20th, 21, via telephone conference. And notice is hereby given in order with the order of the governor issued March 16th, 20, and most recently January the 5th. The City Council of the City of Rhome will conduct its special meeting scheduled for 6:30 on Wednesday by telephone conference in order to advance the public health goal of limiting face-to-face meetings, also called social distancing, to slow the spread of the coronavirus COVID-19. The meeting is closed to in-person attendance by the public.
Mayor, that's something I need to read.
Is that enough?
That's
Okay,
enough.
so, all right. And we're going on now and announcing we do have a quorum here. And I'll call each person's name. Josh. Okay,
Yeah.
Josh is with us. Elaine.
Aye.
Sam.
I'm present.
Okay, and Ashley.
Here.
Okay, and we're going to change the sequencing a tad. We're going to do the grant first because it should take the least amount of time. And Cynthia, you want to describe that?
We might want to do public comment first. And
I'm sorry, you are very right. Yeah, let's go with public comments. Cynthia's keeping me in line. So Shannon, do I see Shannon?
Yes, ma'am,
Yes.
I'm here. The
Okay,
first
do you have?
speaker is Deborah B. Craft.
Hello,
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Deborah B. Craft. I live at 360 West 2nd. I would like to speak on the agenda item of appointing someone to the vacant council seat that you're considering tonight. And I lost my computer. It's diagnosing itself. So I'm going to wing it and remember what I had written. I really hope that if you're not going to take someone and appoint them that has experience on the council, because at this time I think it's kind of critical to have an experienced person, then I really hope you consider someone that is not a friend or family of anyone that has been on council, because I think the nepotism, the appearance of nepotism needs to stop, and we've had that in several of our departments, and I think it needs to go away. I think that's most important at this moment with the growth we have coming, is we pick somebody that is unknown to anybody on the council, or that hasn't been on Facebook taking sides, or that hasn't written letters to the messenger taking sides of the prior council, the prior mayor, against this mayor or for the other mayor, or, any which way it goes. I think we need somebody in there that hasn't had a biased opinion. And I really hope you would really consider an outsider, so to speak, out of our citizens that have applied, if you're not going to go with somebody that has experience. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next up is Michelle Pittman DeCredico. When you're ready.
Thank you. My name is Michelle Pittman DeCredico. I would like to express my concern for the disorderly and unorganized fashion that the City Council meetings are exhibiting the past 3 meetings. City Council meetings should be organized and not run like a garden tea party. I believe that there is a lack of respect in the meetings for the offices you hold. What about addressing city officials by the office they hold, their official title? It is a sign of disrespect to the office when you do not address each other with official titles. You can dislike the person who holds the office, but you should still respect the office that they hold. Using first names casually during meetings is not professional and is a poor reflection on the city and the citizens as a whole. Using pet names such as Hun or Ladybug portrays the image of the good old boy club and does nothing to lend credibility to the perception that the public has of the offices you hold. With the increased use of virtual council meetings due to the pandemic, remember that you officials are able to see each other on your monitors, but the general public is only able to hear you with the audio only. When you do not use formal titles like council member, mayor, city administrator, city secretary, or city attorney when addressing each other, remember that those who are calling in may not be familiar with who everyone is, especially when you use first name. The public does not expect an official city meeting to be run like a casual backyard barbecue or dinner at the Dairy Queen. Please use professional etiquette in official city council meetings. You are not earning any professional respect in the community or the county. It is embarrassing to watch these city council meetings with this lack of respect for the offices that you hold. Bottom line, respect the offices that you hold, whether you like the person or not. Use official titles as that sign of respect for the office, and please learn to lead professional city council meetings that the public can respect you for. If these simple steps for an organized city council meeting cannot be mastered, then maybe it's time for a fresh face to lead these meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next up is Tommy Eason. Tommy, when you're ready.
Good evening, all. I am Tommy Eason. I live at 1107 Mount Lang. First of all, my husband is on the council of this town, and he has never told me I should or should not talk about anything in any citizen presentation. Second, I'm going to give the new council person the benefit of the doubt that she did not know that it is not up to her to decide what any person should or should not talk about. So if I want to talk about an event that I feel should not have taken place during the COVID-19 pandemic and caused the death of one of my friends, that is my prerogative. Did you get your feelings hurt or what? That is not your job as a city council to tell citizens what they should or should not be able to talk about. Third, in the past 4.5 years that my husband has been on the council, he has listened to a few citizens call him all kinds of things, and that was their opinion. He never talked back to them. He never called them out at a meeting. So please do not ever tell me what I can or cannot say. If you want to be on the city council, you should listen to all the citizens. If you cannot do this, perhaps you are over your head. Anything else is unbecoming to the city council and to the citizens you should be representing. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next up is Joe Hernandez. Joe, when you're ready, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Mayor and council members, my name is Joe Hernandez. I reside at School Road. As a citizen of this city, I am disgusted and appalled by the behavior that is displayed by our elected officials. For a town of approximately 1,600, I believe we would be able to have an elected council that would be able to work together instead of taking pop shots at each other every available opportunity. It is also embarrassing that we have council members that haven't visited buildings that are occupied by city employees. The fire and police departments are death traps for our employees. Both buildings need to immediately be repaired or condemned. Insurance didn't pay the claim for the old city hall due to neglect, but now we have firefighters and police officers working in similar type structures. The city is incurring liability for knowing these buildings are hazardous to life and creating severe fire hazards that is covered in the International Fire Code that the city operates under. If a person is killed in any of these buildings, the insurance will not cover the claims due to neglect of the buildings, and the surviving families could bankrupt the city with a wrongful death suit. This is also very hypocritical for the city to hold citizens to a permit process without the city following the same process. The building report also observed asbestos. The city is putting our first responders, city employees in harm's way by allowing them to prolong exposures of asbestos. Is the city prepared for medical claims that are associated with this hazard? It would be greatly appreciated if the elected officials would put their personal agendas aside and work as a team for the citizens they represent. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mayor, that is all for public presentations.
Okay, let's move on then to the regular meeting, the regular
Mayor?
session.
Can I make an announcement real quick, please?
Sure.
Thank you. For those that can't see, this is Councilman McCabe. I just want to point out, as someone coming from daily duties of being on video chats for work, we all need to remember our professionalism while being on the camera and at these meetings. We need to be aware of our facial expressions, how we hold ourselves, what our body's actions are doing, whether we know it or not. As a city council, we do need to be professional on camera and remember that all of these meetings are video recorded. They're posted to YouTube and Facebook, and therefore are permanent in the internet around the world. I just want to make sure to point this out. That way none of us end up on the next trending meme on Facebook. So please be aware of how you look, the smirks you may make, or the actions you may take while on video. Thank you.
Josh, well taken. Appreciate it. Do we have anyone else with an announcement? Mr. Councilman Eastman?
Yes, this isn't an announcement. It's just that, and you're wanting to reorder the agenda. I think we should appoint this new council person first so that they can actually vote on each of the agenda items.
And that's fine. We were just trying to do grants quickly where they could move on. But we can go, as Sam suggested, it's number 1 on the printed agenda. And we can start with that if anybody doesn't have an objection to it. Okay, I open that discussion up relative to appointing a new council person and ask each one of you, I'm going to go down the line, if they have someone to appoint and go from there. Carvin, is that okay?
Yes, Mayor, that'll be fine.
Okay.
May I suggest, let's hear from each of the candidates first, instead of going straight into making an appointment. I mean, we wanted to be fair. Let's let each person speak.
Okay, Shannon, you have the list.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, go down, tell me who's next.
The order that they were sent to you, the first one is Michelle Ty.
Okay, Ms. Ty, would you like to tell us why you want to be on our council and a little bit about yourself?
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. This past election, I saw people making decisions based on one side of an argument. I am new to the political arena, and I am by no means a political person. I pretty much despise politicians and all the games they play. I want to make sure that I know both sides of the story before coming to a conclusion. I started listening to the meetings so I would be informed and not take someone else's word for it. I decided I wanted to become more involved with the direction of the city. I know that the council is in place to enact the will of the citizens, but I also believe that in the rare occasion, you are doing a disservice to the city as a whole. We want our city to flourish, but we are just one accident away from bankruptcy. The funds you are saving the citizens by not fixing life safety issues in the long run are doing more harm than good. Many decisions the council make are based on balancing the needs of the citizens of our city. These decisions also require an understanding of the issues at hand and the possible effects each decision has, not only to the people, but to the city. Serving in public office is not only about representing the voice of the people, it's also about clearly communicating the issues and making sure each decision is informed as possible for all parties involved. If given the opportunity, I would love to serve the city as an advocate for everyone. A little bit about myself. I live on School Road. I've lived here for about 3.5 years. I live with my husband, Joe, who is a police lieutenant at the same agency where I work. I have 2 stepchildren. One is about to be 21 and is a junior at Texas Tech, and the other just graduated from high school. I've been a police officer for 28 years, but I also went through the fire academy as our department was cross-trained. That was about 28 years ago. I currently work as a bomb tech and an explosive canine handler. My canine is a Belgian Malinois named Nina, and she absolutely loves squeaky toys. I'm sure that my neighbor can attest to that. I was also assigned as the bomb squad commander for a while. In that position, I regularly met with other commanders in the DFW area and also across the country. Our responsibilities included grant writing, policy revisions within the bomb squad community, ensuring certifications were up to date within our squad, and ensuring mandatory training was conducted. I absolutely love what I do, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. Another important part of me is my fitness. It's an outlet for me, plus it's a crucial part of my job. I stay in shape for my health and continue to perform my duties to the best of my abilities. I assist officers, especially women, at work with their fitness programming and help improve any deficiencies they might have. I am an advocate for women in law enforcement to be the best that they can be. And that's about it.
Thank you, Michelle. That was very enlightening. Does anybody have a question for Michelle or to add anything? Josh.
Thank you for that, Ms. Ty. I just have one question for you, and this is going to be for all the candidates as well. What can you offer to enhance the city council's efforts to improve city services, as well as enhance the city climate for systematic growth while following responsible business and policy practices?
Well, I think that right now I'm in a position where I don't really know all about the inner workings of the city, but I have been following and learning. And I think that, improving the buildings that they are in, especially the police, the fire department, all the code violations that are going on right now, they need to be fixed. It's a life safety issue. I'm willing to work with everyone. I have my opinions. I know everyone has an opinion, but I have my opinion on what I think is good for the city, and I'm sure other people will disagree with me, but that disagreement should lead to some sort of compromise, and you should be able to speak about it and work together and fix these things that need to be fixed.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, then we'll move on to the next applicant. Shannon, I don't have the list in front of me. Who is that?
It's Patrick DeCredico.
Okay, Patrick, are you with us?
Yes, here I am.
Okay, we're ready to hear about you and things we might not know.
Mayor, good evening. Good evening.
You're fading a little bit.
Mayor, good evening. Good evening to the council, and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. To Michelle Ty. Michelle, I'm absolutely stoked that you are applying for the office, the position of council. I would certainly like to meet Mina one day. You and your husband Joe have been absolute pro advocates in this city, and I wish you the best of luck. So a little background story on me. I was born and raised in New York City. I'm the son of Italian immigrant parents who immigrated to this country in the late 60s. We moved to Texas in the summer of '83 and have been here ever since. Those who ask me, whether or not I'm a Texan, I tell them quite frankly and very honestly that I was born in Texas. It just took me a little while to get down here. The fact of the matter is, I absolutely love Rome. I love Texas. I love being married to my wife, Michelle. She has inspired me to do this. And as we have chosen to spend the rest of our lives here in Rome, as you all know, we built a home in Chisholm, and we spend. So it's only correct and rightfully so that we become advocates within a community as opposed to burying our heads in the sand, and to ensure that our elected officials are community advocates. The city of Rome is truly in need of leaders who are those community advocates that I just mentioned, and not political activists, which we have too many of. Community leaders willing to serve and not to be self-serving, and leaders who are willing to propel Rome into the future. What do I feel the biggest problem is in Rome? Conventional wisdom would lead one to believe to discuss the city's infrastructure, which is obviously painful. However, I believe the greatest need is for the council to come together for the greater good of the citizens that have placed their trust in its elected officials. So given the opportunity, I would gladly serve in whatever capacity that I may see fit to do so. And I just thank the council for the opportunity to be present this evening.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. Anybody have questions for Patrick? And Shannon, the next one is?
Gary Walker.
Okay, Gary, tell us about yourself and why you want to be on our council.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. Thank you, all the council people. My name is Gary Walker. I live at 150 West Logan. I've been in the construction business for self-employed for about 25 years. We love Rome. It's a great city. There's seems to be a few problems that I don't know why there's so much conflict into the council. There's a lot of things in city politics that's got to be taken care of, I'm sure. It sort of hurts to see it going this way because there's so much growth coming to Texas, and there's so much that's going to come to Rome. And I know we're getting a new subdivision, and we're going to have a lot more people, which is going to create a lot more, I guess you might say, problems or opportunities for the city. I guess just depends on how you handle it. So I'd like to be part of it because I like to see Rome just shine. I mean, it's got a lot of opportunity, and I think we need to really take advantage of everything that's coming our direction, because over the next, according to a construction, probably the next 4 years is going to be really, really a lot of growth growing, especially this direction. It just keeps coming this way. So there's a lot of things to handle. I really would like to be part of it and do what I can do. That's it.
Thank you, sir. Questions? Josh.
Mr. Walker, as you mentioned, there's a lot of growth coming to Rome. What would you do to prepare for that growth this coming year, and how would you propose that we pay for it?
Well, that's always the interesting part, because you'd have to look at the financial deal. To me, it's dealing in construction, because we do a lot of water, sewer, things of this type. That was one of the things I was sort of wondering about. Are we ready for 10,000 homes that are coming up with our sewer system? I mean, it's going to create some tax dollars, but it would seem that it's going to take a while for those houses to get here. So I think you have to pick and choose what's going to be where you're going to get your money from. Hopefully, as we start to develop these houses, we start to get some different businesses, some restaurants, things of this type, so we can bring in more money to the city. So, and I understand the challenge of a city, because we deal with a lot of cities. There's growth is unbelievable, and they have to be ready for, especially for water supply and sewer supply, roads, paving. I mean, it's just going to be where you get the money from. But we've got to bring in some kind of businesses of some kind to create more revenue for the city.
Anybody else? Shannon, next.
Tim Robertson.
Can y'all hear me?
We can.
Well, good evening to the mayor and the council and the others attending on the phone and as on virtual online. I'm Tim Robinson, live at 1110 Sunrise Avenue here in the big, beautiful town of Rome, Texas. I've been a resident of Rome, Texas for 20 years, since 1999, and I'm proud of it, people. A lot of people used to say when you go through Rome, you either go two ways. You either go to Fort Worth or you go to the Texas Motor Speedway, and you do it at 75 miles an hour, which we'd have to grin and bear it. A little bit about me. Currently employed. I've been employed for the past 10 years with Tarrant County Precinct 4 as equipment operator. I enjoy my job. Prior to that, I've been a self-employed truck driver. I've worked for several independent school districts in the maintenance capacity, taking care of the buildings, grounds, personnel, and everything else. I've worked with TxDOT, contract mode for the state of Texas. I know the working differences, how to talk communications, if you want to call it that, with TxDOT, other schools, like school boards, like TxDOT, and everything else. Currently, I enjoy working at Tarrant County because we do interlocal agreements with other cities. And we go in and if they need street repairs, we do the street repairs and turn something old into something new that I'm proud that we walk off from and say we did that. Big major companies I've worked for, some of the few, a lot of people that have been in the past, worked for PPG Industries, worked for Helmet Turbine Components. I contracted services to those people in the past. Believe me, people, communications, knowing the contract, knowing how to read a contract, knowing how to talk to the people in meetings. Everybody put your cards on the table and everybody turn them over one at a time and visualize the future. If everybody's on the same page, it makes things work harmoniously. I have a cover letter that I sent with my application, and I'm going to read the cover letter to each and every one of y'all right now. And it says, to the city of Rome, the mayor and city council. With great enthusiasm, I am submitting this cover letter for my consideration for filling the recently opened council seat for place 2. Having served the citizens of Rome in the past electoral outcome, I'm saying thank you for the opportunity and the confidence in my ability to contribute towards a team effort. At this time of unity, your consideration on my ability to fulfill vacancy would be humbling. Thank y'all. A little bit of past background about me. Back in 1970s, I was a certified firefighter in the state of Texas, and I have 30 plus years of volunteer time in 2 different departments in 2 different local towns. Honorably discharged from the United States National Guard. I have lots of paper signatures, but it's got accreditations for this, accreditations for that. I even have accreditations for knowing if a wheel bearing's out on a piece of equipment or not. So, and I have, like I say, I'm a past member of the city of Rome, and I enjoyed working with the council then, and I'm looking forward, if appointed, to working very harmoniously with the upcoming council.
Thank you, Tim. Anybody with questions for Mr. Robinson? Josh.
Mr. Robinson, what would you do on this city council if you're appointed that you were not able to do in your previous position with the council?
I think if I was on this council, I would sit and work up and down the line on the council line for the mayor to the other council members seated. And let's all sit down and discuss it, because in the past, sometimes I was kind of standing out in left field, not knowing what direction we were going, and had to kind of play along. I'd like to be kind of put on the same page as everybody else and play ball fairly. And like I say, I think I can contribute a lot to the council if given that ability one more time.
Thanks, Tim. Anyone else? Okay, moving right along. Now, we have one opening for place 2, Vice Kenny Crenshaw, that's resignation was accepted recently. And I think I will go 1 through 5 and see who anyone might want to nominate, and then we'll go for a vote. Or do y'all want to go for a vote just with the names that we have here? Let me hear from the council.
I believe Sam had a question, so.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sam, I missed you. Missed your wave.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to thank all 4 of the candidates for submitting their applications. I appreciate that each of you wish to serve. After listening to the 4, I have the first one, Michelle Ty, stood out for me quite a bit. Before I make a motion, I want to give others an opportunity to speak. Okay, I'm not trying to push anything on anyone, but Michelle certainly got my attention.
Anybody else want to mention anything?
I'll say that all 4 of these applicants, I think, are extremely knowledgeable, well represented. I think any one of them would be able to fill this vacancy because they're strong in first responders, they're strong in construction backgrounds, they're strong in their respective fields. And I think this is a great group of candidates. And, you know, to be honest, I don't know if we could go wrong with any of them, but I will say with the way that the world is today with everything going on, I would say that Ms. Ty's application, resume, her speaking stood out very well to me as well. So I would say she's probably the top standout, but again, I think everybody is well qualified.
Okay, so are you making a motion to select Ms. Ty or just making a general comment?
I was just making a general comment at this time in case anyone else had any conversation or discussion.
Okay. I have lost all of you guys' pictures and everything. I'm trying to get back in to go to meeting. So, hey, if you will, hold on just for a second. Did I fall off of everybody's screen or just my own?
Just your own. I can see you, Mayor, and I can hear
Okay.
you.
Okay. Well, here, hey, I'm back, so that's good. One thing I would like to comment on all the people that put in. I think that y'all guys are very right. We've got a strong field here, but we can only select one out of this group. And the others, and including the one that's selected, we need to remember we have an election coming up in May, and applications are being accepted now through Shanna's at the 12th of February.
Yes, ma'am. It's the Friday. I think it's the 12th, but it's the second Friday of the month.
Okay, so y'all guys, whoever is the odd people out, don't forget that May election. We need all the help we can get. Okay, let's open this for a vote. Anybody else have a comment before we go to a vote?
I think before we vote, we need a motion of who to select, correct?
Carvin, help me out. I really don't know.
Yes, at this point, we've had discussion, but no one has actually made a formal motion. So you could ask for a motion and get a second, and then you could proceed to a vote.
Okay, so said, let's see if we have anybody that wants to open for a motion. Nobody
believe-
wants to.
I believe Councilman Eason had his hand up before I did, so I'll let him speak first if you don't mind, Mayor.
Okay, and I'll hear Sam. He's got his hand up. Okay.
Can you see us,
Yes,
Joanne?
I can now. Yes, sir.
Okay. I would like to make a motion that we appoint Michelle Ty to Rome City Council, Place 2.
Okay. Anybody else want to join Sam, or do we want to go down the line?
I will second that motion.
And that was Josh. Okay, Elaine,
I was just gonna second. That's okay.
okay, so we've got a motion and a second to start voting. Okay, and Sam has nominated Michelle. Josh has done a second. And Elaine, where are you in this mix?
We're ready for you to call for a vote.
We've called for the vote and we're ready for your vote.
Well, if
Well,
we're
you-
ready for a vote, then we have to start at the top and go back through. Just because Sam made a motion, I second, doesn't mean that that was a vote. So we have to go back through the voting process now, Mayor.
Okay, hey, y'all bear with me on this. Number one, Councilman Josh McCabe.
I vote aye.
For who?
To
For the
support the
motion that Sam made of appointing Michelle Ty.
Okay. And Sam? I'm sorry, Elaine is next. Elaine, your vote, please,
Aye.
for Michelle.
Yes, that's the motion, Mayor, is that we're voting yay or nay on Michelle. So I vote aye.
Okay. And then Eason,
I vote aye for Michelle Ty to be appointed to Rome City Council, Place 2.
and Ashley Majors, place 5.
I vote. Michelle already won, but I'll just vote Tim.
Tim Robinson.
Right.
Okay.
So congratulations, Michelle.
There's no motion for Tim.
Excuse me, I need an aye or a nay from Councilmember Majors.
Oh, nay. I'm sorry. I'm excited for her. I'm looking forward to it. Nay. And I would just like to say congratulations to Michelle. I know she's going to be an asset to our team. So.
Okay, Michelle, have you got anything to say?
I just want to thank y'all for the opportunity, and I'm excited.
Okay, we're looking forward. We get to do all this again the 28th. And trust me, our city administrator will give you pounds of documents before then.
Okay.
Okay, we do appreciate everybody.
Mayor?
Thanks, everybody, and do sign
Mayor?
up for the May election.
Mayor?
Yes.
I believe Shannon's about to point it out, but we do need her to take the oath of office so that she can sit on the council and discuss and
We
vote
do.
with us.
And we have it ready for that. So, Shannon, are you in a position to do that at this time?
Yes, I am. Michelle, are you on video?
Yes, hold on.
Thank you.
Can you see me?
We're going to do the statement of office and then the oath of office. So if you can put your right hand up. I state your name, do solemnly swear
I, Michelle Ty, do solemnly swear
or affirm that I have not
or affirm that I have not
directly or indirectly paid,
directly or indirectly paid,
offered, promised to pay,
offered, promised to pay,
contributed or promised to contribute
contributed or promised to contribute
any money or thing of value,
any money or thing of value,
or promised any public office
or promised any public office
or employment for the giving,
employment of the giving
or withholding of a vote
or withholding of a vote
at the election at which I was elected,
at the election at which I was elected,
or as a reward
or as a reward
to secure my appointment
to secure my appointment
or confirmation,
or confirmation,
whichever the case may be.
whichever the case may be.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you. And now we'll go on to the oath. I state your name.
I, Michelle Ty,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
or affirm
or affirm
that I will faithfully
that I will faithfully
execute the duties of the office
execute the duties of the office
of Council Member Place 2,
of Council Member Place 2,
City of Rome of the State of Texas,
City of Rome of the State of Texas,
and will do the best
and will do the best
of my ability,
to
preserve, protect, and defend
serve, protect, and defend
the Constitution
the Constitution
and the laws of the United States
and the laws of the United States
and of this state.
and of this state.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you and welcome to the council.
Thank you.
Welcome,
Okay.
Councilperson Michelle.
Thank you.
Okay, we filled our vacancy. We're going to move now to B, discussion and any necessary action regarding, I'm sorry, Shannon, I have lost the grant on this thing.
It's item D, as in dog.
Oh, okay, regular. Let's move to item D next because we've got some people visiting with us. Discussion and any necessary action regarding the awarding of grant administrative service contract for the 21-22 Texas Community Development Block Grant Community Development Fund. We are in the process, as approved by the council at the last meeting, of moving forward little by little to make all the deadlines that are set to punch the button and say we are applying for a block grant. Tonight, we need approval from the council. We have a contract in place, ready to be signed from GrantWorks to become our grant writer. Now, the grant writer works directly, he'll be working with our city administrator. And as we have to put together things and such, we have to do, I can't remember exactly what the next step is. Cynthia has it. We have to have 2 public hearings. We have to do a lot of things. And Cynthia, it all has to be done by what, the 1st of February?
One public hearing does, yes, but this is, yes, so this agenda item is to award the bid to a contender. And as you know, council members, you all received the packet. We did send out the RFP, request for proposals for grant administration services, to 3 recipients, and as required by the state, and we included minority and women-owned businesses as well as required by state. And we got 1 response back, and you all have that response in front of you. I would have hoped that we would have gotten at least 2 or 3 back, but be that as it may, I think the important part here is that, and I know you guys know this, but in your packets, if you decide to award this grant, remember that the it's almost like a contingency. So they're going to help us apply for these grants for the Texas Community Development Block Grants. And if we are successful in getting them, then they would be paid a fee, and that fee would not be paid until probably our next budget year. But if we are not awarded a grant as for our application that they would help us with, then we would not pay them a fee. So I think it's a win-win. We do have projects because of the foresight of the council and getting these projects ready, and the wastewater, roads, bridges, drainage. Those are the top categories for the award of these particular grants. The public hearing that is required by, you get extra points for the Texas Department of Agriculture to have that by the end of the month. And if the council awards this, we would have that at the next council meeting. I believe we have a representative from GrantWorks on the line if you all have any questions.
Sam has a question.
Yeah, I went through the paperwork. I didn't find a description of the specific grant for which we would be applying. So, I mean, the actual details of for what we're applying, what are the benefits, what are the costs, give us the details of that grant, or are we just looking at hiring someone and we'll figure out what the grant is later?
No, it has to be for certain things, categories that GrantWorks had. We chose because that gives you the most point, and it's certainly something we need, water and wastewater. Now, if we're lucky enough to get this grant, we'll have to develop a scope of work of what we want. GrantWorks will help us with that scope and will help us administer this contract. Again,
Okay.
That's part of their fee.
It sounds like there is a grant that has some kind of a definition here. And so I would like to see what is the definition of the grant that we're considering. Because, I mean, to me, it doesn't make sense to hire some administrative company if we don't know really the details of what it is we're hiring them for.
Mayor, this is Keith Payne with GrantWorks. I'd happy to answer the councilman's question if recognized.
Okay. Keith,
yes, Councilman, this grant flows down through the Texas Department of Agriculture. It is the 2021-2022 Community Development Fund. The grant amount maximum is $350,000. And as the city administrator had shared with you, the Council of Government was the regional review committee that set the priorities for the COG, which would be wastewater, or road, street drainage. And as the mayor had mentioned, the fees both for the grant administration firm and the engineering services would be paid out of the grant. There is a match for this grant, and it's based on your city population. It would be 10% for city population greater than 1,500, less than 3,000. And the fees that GrantWorks proposed in your proposal, presume that's in the packet that you had, would be $32,900. The state sets fees for that at $35,000 or 11%, whichever is lower. They set the state fees for engineering as well. And so tonight you would be voting as to whether to award administrative services to GrantWorks. The next phase, as the city administrator mentioned, would be having the public hearing. The Texas Department of Agriculture is awarding additional points for holding a public hearing prior to, I believe the way the application guide reads, 90 days prior to the application deadline, which is May the 3rd back up 90 days, that means the public hearing needs to be held before February 1st. Once if the council chooses to award, the next step would be to move towards holding the public hearing, and B, hiring an engineer. Once the engineer is in place, the next step would be to hold a project scope meeting, which would be with the Grant Works representative that will be writing your application, the engineering firm that the city selects, and any of the city officials, public works director that would want to put input in on the particular project that the city may choose to go with. And then in that discussion, with the consultation of the engineering to develop cost and the Grant Works application specialist providing input as to which project within the city would be the most competitive project is narrowed down then and selected. Did that answer your question, Councilman?
It got me a long way, thank you, but not completely. But you got me a long way. I learned a lot. So let's start off with, it's a maximum of $350,000. And when I look at your proposal and I go to page, and it's, according to the PDF, it's page 45. According to your index, it's page 39, I believe. And it has proposed cost. I see that whatever's the least, 32.9 or 11% of the total grant award, whichever is lower. So I'm now thinking in terms of, it's not a $350,000 grant, it is a maximum $350,000 grant. And you listed a lot of things, a lot of work that would need to be done, hiring an engineer, doing some design work up front. All of those things are pre-grant award activities, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and so that would come out of our 10% that we would be, that's money that the city puts out to pay for that, right?
Yeah, the matching fees at 10% would be the city's portion. That'd be $35,000. That would be added to the grant amount, so the total amount of the grant would be $385,000, and then the administrative fees and engineering fees would come out of that grant. And I'm not doing the math now, other than in my head, but I think that would when you take out the administrative fees and the engineering fees, it would leave, I think, roughly $295,000 for the actual project.
Right. I appreciate that. I was trying to establish a timeline on when we were spending money, the city was spending the money.
When the city would need to write a check. Is that what you're asking?
There we go. You're cutting to the chase for me. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, historically, Councilman, the first check for the city, typically it would straddle either 2 or possibly even 3 of your city budget cycles. Historically, the CDBG grant has awarded in late summer, early fall. And I think I know the city is on a fiscal year instead of a calendar year. So September 1st, October 1st would be the city's fiscal year beginning.
Okay,
and
okay.
So,
I'm going to have to cut exactly to the chase. I'm going to have to get to just to the very point of this. Do we have to put out money prior to the awarding of the grant?
You do not.
So how do we do the design and engineering work to prepare for the grant filing?
Well, the engineer that you hire and the grant administrator that you hire will do the work necessary to submit the application. If there is no grant awarded, there are no fees paid.
Okay, so the money for the engineer, et cetera, and doing the design, that comes out of your pocket.
It actually comes out of the grant.
Well, but if we don't win the grant,
Right.
if it turns
Then,
out that we've not
then
been awarded the grant,
yeah, if there's no grant awarded, then neither the grant administrator nor the engineer collect anything.
so all of that upfront design work and engineering work ends up being for free?
Keith,
Well,
I think I can take this one. You want me to answer? I understand. I'm going to answer him real quick. I understand what you're saying, Councilman. So what you're saying is basically the money and the time and all the energy that's going into the preparation for this application for the grant. You're right. It's wasted man hours basically for grant works and the engineer if it does not get awarded to the city. So that's why we pre-score all the cities, and we wouldn't be putting in the energy and effort if we did not believe y'all were scored favorably. So to answer your question, correct, there's no money that comes out of the city's pocket. It's going to be all on grant works and the engineers up to that point, and there's an agreement that no one gets paid unless the grant is awarded to the city, just to kind of clarify everything.
Thank you very much. That is a very important point. What is your name?
Who that was real quick, please, for clarification?
That was Brett with Grant Works.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else with questions? We got the guys on the line. If you've got any, now's the time to ask them.
So I just have a statement or maybe discussion in general for the council, and this might just be me. We put out an RFP hoping several would come back. Now I know not everybody is well versed in grants like some people are, so I don't know what it's supposed to look like or the money they're supposed to take. So, you know, ultimately I would like to see several of them to bounce them off of each other, just, you know, highs and lows and mids and everything else. And, you know, we already have some people saying that we rush into stuff spending too much money. Well, if we rush into this because this is the only option we got back, and eventually $30-something thousand out of pocket over a couple of years, and we're already having a hard time trying to come up with money for other projects that we need to get done. So, you know, I know that looking over the documents from GrantWorks, I mean, they look phenomenal. I'm not gonna lie. They look like some great business. They've been doing this for 30 years. I know they said that in there is in red writing several times that you know, they're willing to negotiate the fee that we would be paying eventually. So I guess what I'm getting at is I'm a little hesitant going with them simply just because they're the only ones that submitted anything. You know, I would like to see a couple, but I do know that we're on a strict timeline as well. So kind of stuck. So you know.
And I think I got Sam and Ashley, both Sam and Ashley. I think she had her hands up first.
Go ahead, Ashley.
No, let Sam go. He was before me. He's asked some really good questions. So go ahead, Sam.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilman McKay brought up an excellent point about money. Where do we get our $35,000? As I seem to recall, we just got an audit report last meeting, and I've heard these audit reports, and every single year they talk about the public works budget is something complete and separate accounting and different color of money from the rest of our accounts and the rest of the departments. And Cynthia, Shannon, please correct me if I'm misstating this in any way. I can only assume, since this grant would be for water and wastewater, that we're just looking at something that would be subsidized at $35,000 would have to come out of the public works budget. So the $350,000, whatever money we got for the grant, that would definitely go into the public works, and it would not allow us to be able to say, okay, it goes in one area and then we could transfer money to another area, right? Because we get the 350,000, we wouldn't be able to change the color of money and say, well, you know what, we're only going to use, say, 200,000 of it for wastewater and fresh water. We'll put some money on, you know, in some other areas. We wouldn't be able to do that because of the way the accounting's done. That's my assumption. I'm actually asking, because again, I don't believe the accounting would allow us to do anything with that money or benefit in any way towards the, you know, issues we're having with the buildings, like fire safety, you know, finding a city hall, etc.
Councilmember Eason, you are exactly right. It would only be for what we would probably go for, because what we're prepared for and what, as you guys know, we're already looking at some improvements to the West wastewater treatment plant. We have projects that are outlined and ready to go because of the master plans that we have from the water to the wastewater. So yes, not only would these funds, we would qualify for them based on what they were, the funds were going towards, in this case, water, wastewater. So the grant itself would also indicate that you can only use it for that dedicated project that you indicate. So you couldn't cross those lines. And yes, it is the enterprise fund, as you mentioned, and that would be the water wastewater fund. So you're correct.
Okay, thank you. I've got some other things to say. Ashley, I want to give you an opportunity. Should you?
No, sir, go ahead.
Okay.
You're kind of answering some of my questions, so just go ahead.
Oh, okay.
I'm letting you have the floor, Sam, so just go ahead. It's making it easy.
The $35,000. Josh was, again, Councilman McCabe is absolutely correct. We don't have just $35,000 laying around in the public works budget. GrantWorks indicated that it's probably going to be over 2 to 3 budget cycles. Okay. I don't want, Carvin, you might want to check me on my wording here to make sure I don't commit any crime. Would we be able to use the grant money? We get awarded the money, because we're not going to be out any money unless we're awarded the money. Can we use the grant money to pay ourselves back the $35,000 that we put in?
Mr. Payne, can you answer that?
Well,
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought he was asking your counsel. I don't believe that would be possible.
Right.
Carvin, what's your take?
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment. I mean, you're going to be governed by the terms of the grant. The grant will specify what you can spend the money for in the grant document itself, and you will have submitted an application telling the awarding entity, the state of Texas, what you intend to use the funds for. So you will have laid all that out for them in your application, and you'll be committed then to follow through with that, what you put in the application.
I knew what I was suggesting might be a little shady, but that's why I wanted to ask it and make sure we don't go down that road.
Well, and I think too, what the timing, you know, who knows, once if we should be lucky enough to get a grant in November of 21, probably we would not be paying anything until the project was half through, which it might even be the next fiscal year. And I think it would behoove us when we establish a budget to put that money in the budget to Public Works. That may mean that somebody else gets a little short-handed sometime, but the end result probably would benefit the city. And we don't pay the balance, whatever that turns out to be, until the project is 100% completed. So that may even be another budget cycle. It just kind of depends on what we think we want to accomplish with this money.
Well, a couple of things I would mention, and I know we only briefly had the conversation. I believe it was in December when we were talking about needed improvements to. Now that we've kind of gone underway with the East wastewater treatment plant improvements, coming back to the West wastewater treatment plant improvements that our CIP project has laid out from our water wastewater master plan. So we've got those. We are working we are already pursuing some other avenues for assistance in meeting those demands for those projects, and that's through the Texas Water Development Board. So we're going to be, as you guys may remember, we're filling out that project information fact sheet to submit that project. So I think that this, when we're looking at what we need to fund that would fit the criteria for this particular grant, we're already in a good position to be able to combine these funding sources, and we can meet that by budgeting. And council will have to look at all the different alternatives, but some of those may require revenue bonds, and those would be paid from the wastewater. They would be based off the water wastewater funds. And so I think everything is really, and Josh, I just want to say, Councilmember McCabe, to your point, I think you're exactly right. I would have liked to have seen three bids myself. I will say at this point, it's almost, we don't have it. And so if we don't get the grant, we're not out anything. And so it's really kind of a win-win situation, even though competition is always a good thing. I will say I actually have had experience with this company. I mean, you guys read their packet, but I have had experience with this company in 2 other communities. So they are a leader in Texas in this area. And you saw all the different areas that they work with in grant administration services. So they're definitely a reputable company. And while I would have liked to have seen more competition myself, I think it's really kind of a win-win situation, because if we don't get the grant, we're not out anything. It does already fold into the plans that you all have already identified for our water wastewater needs for the city of Rome, and could really nicely dovetail into some of those efforts that are underway. And we're going to be coming back with a report probably in March on the status of where we're at with that effort in trying to identify other funds for these that we have at the West Wastewater Treatment Plant.
Sam?
Our engineer is Kimley Horn. Will GrantWorks be using our engineer, or is GrantWorks going to supply their own engineer? Because I don't think Kimley Horn would be willing to work for free if we weren't awarded the grant.
Yeah, council member, once the council has made the decision to whether to award or not, once you've hired a grant administrator, the next process is to go out for requests for qualification, which is to hire your engineering firm. There'll be a list provided for you of engineering firms, but there is a requirement that ad be placed in the paper. So any engineering firm could apply to submit a proposal for that. So it's a proposal process just like it was for hiring a grant administrator. And obviously it's at the council's bidding whether the city pursues this grant or not. But the state lays out guidelines for the process, and the request for qualifications requires notification waiting period. That I guess would be the best way to put it. So I think it's 14 days for the engineering proposals, and plus the scope meeting, and the application deadline is May the 3rd. So obviously, I want the council to do what they feel is best, but there is somewhat of a sense of urgency to take advantage of this so that we can, if we're awarded the grant administration services, that we can have due diligence to provide you the best and most competitive application that we submit for the city.
Thank you. I understand the sense of urgency. I'm just, again, I've never gone through this before. I'm educating myself. And like I said, I know we have an here. They've put together a master plan for our wastewater treatment plants. We've also got master plan for the water. There's a lot of things in the works that these engineers with Kimley Horn have been working on. Again, I'm about the money. Okay, I want to be conservative with my money. Kimley Horn doesn't work for free, but yet these engineers, to do a proper job, they will need to know our city, and they will need to interact with Kimley Horn should Kimley Horn not be the one that bids on it. So it does seem like, could that money, could the money that we pay Kimley Horn in working with them, could that be considered part of our 10%?
Well, there is a provision or a possibility to use in-force contributions either through direct labor, equipment, or engineering services. But typically that would be in-house expenditures.
That means out of our pocket.
Is the engineering firm that has drawn up your master plan a city engineer?
Yes.
Contract, yes.
Okay, Ashley, did you have something?
Yes, Mayor. Sir, with GrantWorks, this is Ashley Majors, and I just have a couple of questions. To ask you a question with with Kimley Horn, would you just, instead of paying them in with the 10%, you would just need to look at all of the documentation that the city has? Is that correct? That with the contracts and all of the that they've put together, like the master plan, and so you wouldn't have to work with them, correct? You would just need to look at what they've provided us, or would you need to work with them?
I think we would just use what they had provided you.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
Right.
I understand that you are the only one that has turned in any, returned a bid, which I am delighted. And I would look forward if if you are awarded that. I am super excited that we have a grant, that we are would be getting a grant if at all possible. Now, do you know if there's other grants? Because right now, we are looking for other grants for our Facilities, do you know if there's any other ones just off the top of your head? I know it's putting you on the spot for facilities. Is there anything coming up at all possible? Just putting you on the spot. I don't know if you can answer that one, but just asking.
Yes. Typically, I don't know of a grant off the top of my head that would deal with City Hall. Typically, grants don't do that, but other grants that GrantWorks handles that may benefit the city, there are grants for first responders, fire, ambulance, service truck vehicles. There are parks grants. That doesn't really have to do with city structures, but within the master plan, if you have parks involved in it, there are parks grants that we can deal with. We talked about the downtown revitalization program grant or Main Street program, and those are the ones that come to mind immediately.
Okay. Nothing for our fires, for the fire department or the police station?
For the structures themselves, I'm not aware of that. For the fire department grant, it's typically reserved for equipment or vehicles like pumper trucks and those types of items.
Okay. Well, you're going to miss out on a long discussion about that. So I just wanted to see if there was anything that was going to help us tonight. So, well, thank you for giving us the opportunity to see if awarded, and to our to other council members. I know, Sam, you were asking about the $35,000. If he is awarded, we could possibly pay $17,000 and then, the 17,000 to split it up. I think that would be doable for us. Just throwing it out there. So we're not doing it all at once. So possibly we could find the money, I think, to help us out. But I'm looking forward to seeing if there's anything we can do. So thank you, sir. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Elaine?
Thank you.
Yes, I would just like us to consider the fact that without the grant, then whatever that bill is that we'll be looking at, we have to budget that and make up the money ourselves right out of our own revenue stream. Whenever you look at grants and it has specific applications, then what that can do is the amount of money that you have budgeted already for that specific application can be it can be spent in on something else. So if we're talking about the fire department, Ashley, as far as your question there, if we already had it in the budget, as we were planning for the next year's budget for fire equipment and supplies and different things like that, vehicles, then if we got a grant for those, then we could take that budget amount and apply it in a different direction within the fire department. So you see, it kind of can adjust your budget and its application. It's not like you've lost that money that's already in the budget. You're going to reappropriate it to help the fire department in a different way. And so if we get monies that goes for equipment, then we can take the money that we already had in the budget for the equipment and apply it to the building. So it's not a loss. You're not losing anything. You're gaining anything. You're gaining things, and you just have to learn through your budget, working with your budget, how the benefit becomes much greater. The opportunity to net $295,000 toward our infrastructure, not buildings, but other infrastructure, and what it cost us is something around $35,000, but we're going to net $295,000. I'm telling you, we can work the budget hard and we can make that happen, especially if it's over 2 different budgets, you know. And so I just like it is a win-win for us on many different avenues. But I just wanted to remind you that by getting that and applying it specifically to line item needs that we have, it really frees up other monies so that we can deal with facilities. Facilities, as we've mentioned before, is a difficult area. Our median income is also a challenge, and but there are some grants out there, facilities. It's just not the easiest ones to get, and there's fewer of them. So anyway, I just think it's a win-win. I think at some point Rhome has to get brave and jump off the cliff and learn to use, identify, and better ourselves by looking at grant situations. That's my personal opinion.
Thanks, Elaine. Does anyone have anything else before we call for a vote? Josh, I'm sorry, Josh, your hand blends in with your furniture. So there you go.
Okay.
That'll work.
Thank you. Elaine, you always put my mind at ease the way you explain things, so I appreciate that. My only other question is on the negotiated fee with GrantWorks. Is that negotiated before we sign the contract, or do we have to wait till we find out what the award is so we know what kind of numbers we're talking about? When is that negotiated?
Hey, Mr. Payne, can you take that?
Yes, the fee set by the state is $35,000, and we submitted our proposal, $32,900, I believe. So if the council were to award GrantWorks, it would be at the $32,900 fee, not the $35,000 fee.
Is less.
Which is what percent? What percent would that be, Mr. Payne?
I'm working on that for you now.
Oh, okay.
It's about a 6% discount.
So instead of 10, no, I mean our fee.
No, we're talking their fee.
Yeah, it would be the lesser of $32,900 or 11%, but assuming a maximum grant amount of $350,000. 11% of $350,000 is $38,500, so it would be the $32,900.
So there's really no negotiations with the city then? Because I read several places that this fee is always negotiable.
Well, if I'm doing the math right, in their proposal, they put 11% and the 32 would be 9%. So
it would be less.
But if they keep saying that it's negotiable, can the city not come back and try to negotiate for a lesser fee? I mean, I'm with Mr. Easton here. I like to save some money where I can. So if you're telling us it's negotiable, I think, if you come back and say, we'll give you 11%, we come back, we say 8%, meet somewhere in the middle, and that's how a negotiation goes. But if you're just giving us, the RFP that we put out and you're coming back saying, this is it doesn't seem like much of a negotiation. So I guess I'm missing where the negotiation part is.
Well, typically in the proposal process, Councilman, if there had been multiple proposals and on the body of work, all the proposals were equal, and the proposal that we put, I think GrantWorks has managed to completion over 2,000 of these community development projects. So if you have multiple grant administrators and They're all using the fee market fee set by the state of $35,000. But one grant administrator says, I'll do it for $33,000. We have put that in our proposal that we would be willing to negotiate the fee. We don't want to lose any business to any cities over someone that's going below the market. But we submitted a below the market bid to begin with at $32,900 versus $35,000.
Elaine?
I would just like to point out that there are two amounts of money that we're discussing that sound very similar. One is matching funds, and that is $35,000. That is a set amount. The other fee is what the administrating or the grant company charges us for their service to do the grant work for us. So the $35,000 matching funds is not negotiable. It has to stay that way. And the grant company can't make that be different, is my understanding. But their fee, what they charge us to do the work for us, he's already reduced it to, I think we did the calculation there that it's already reduced to 9%. Is that correct, Cynthia? That was your calculation?
Yes.
Okay. So I just didn't want us to get those two confused because they're two different things.
Ashley?
I'm with Elaine. I mean, he's given us a discount, and they're the only company. There was in the newspapers. There was tons of grants out there. We're getting it at $32,900 instead of the $35,000. I'm for grant works. I mean, I would like to vote to accept grant works to go ahead and start on this. I mean, like Elaine said, we need to go ahead and jump and start getting grants, start taking, start getting the ball rolling, get this town sorry, my back. Start working on the next steps and getting the town where it needs to be. So,
Are you making a motion?
yeah, I would like to take a motion that we accept to make grant works, to accept the bid for grant works to accept grant works as the grant writer. So.
But before we go too much further.
Yes, sir.
Councilperson Ty, you've been very quietly listening. Any comments?
Well, since I didn't have the packet, I just saw it, so I haven't got to read it, but it does sound like a good idea. I'm just wondering about, is it 350,000 and that's the max, or could it be 100,000? Could it be 150,000? How often does that max happen?
Good question. Yeah, Brett,
Councilwoman, typically when we do this project scope meeting, we're going to recommend a project that is the maximum amount.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor that we accept Grant Works as our grant writer. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Elaine is seconding. Okay, let's go to a vote.
Yeah,
Wait,
You do have a resolution in your packet, or with your motion, Councilmember Majors, are you including to approve the resolution?
Oh, sorry. Hold on just a second. Can you, hold on just a second. I've left it. 1 second. And I just want to let everyone know, just of my facial expressions, that I've hurt my back. So when I move, I just want to let everybody know right now. So if I move, I can, my facial expressions, that hurts. So I apologize.
Shannon, I would interpret the council member's motion and the second that's on the table to include the resolution as essentially that's what the resolution says.
Thank you, Carvin.
Are y'all ladies okay with Carvin's interpretation?
The
I
resolution,
am.
I can read it. It reads the resolution of the City of Rome, Texas, authorizing the award of the professional service provider contract for the 21-22 Texas Community Development Block Grant Community Development Fund.
Yes, that was it. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Let's move to vote. Councilman number 1, Josh McCabe.
Aye.
Councilman number 3, Elaine Priest.
Aye.
Councilman number 4, Sam Eason.
Could you do councilperson 2?
Oh, I sure didn't, because I have that marked off. Michelle, excuse me. Sam's looking out for you. Thank you. Okay. Place 2, our new council member, Michelle Ty. How do you
Aye.
vote, Michelle? Aye. Okay, and I do apologize. Okay, Sam, it's your turn.
Aye.
And Ashley, Councilman 5, Ashley Majors.
Aye.
Okay, the vote is taken, and Grant Works will be our grant writer.
Thank you.
Mayor and council members, if I may, let me just thank you for your confidence. And I look forward to working with the city to provide the most competitive application we can. And thank you for your time and consideration.
Okay, thank you, guys. We're going to move on now. We're back under old business. We have a new council member. We've taken care of that. We now need to discuss and take any necessary action regarding facilities assessment conditions report. And Cynthia, you want to kick that off?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. As you all know, we had a lengthy conversation last week on this topic, and the council directed Mayor Pro Tem Priest to gather some information, and she put out some information to you all, and you all responded. And so I've compiled those and sent them to her, and so I'm going to let her kind of lead this section, as this was her brainchild, and you guys authorized her to kind of lead this discussion.
All right. Thank you, Cynthia. A couple of things I'd like to say in advance, and that is, this is complicated. And so it's our patience with each other as we go through this is going to be really important. It's one of those things that, gosh, we wish we could fix everything right now, and it's not possible. And so we have to look at strategies to not only truly assess what we're looking at here, but we also have to have patience in the process. And so because as we follow these policies and procedures, it is definitely going to take some time to get it done. I would just also like to emphasize that it's key for us to make progress and to work together, that we keep each other informed. So I would really encourage, as we go through this, that as the elected side, and of course that's going to be our mayor that is in that position, and then we have the staff side, and it's their responsibility to carry out whatever it is the city council deems them to do. It's very important that they're kind of joined at the hip as we go through this process, so that no information is lost, and clarity of understanding of the purpose of what we're doing. The other point I'd like to make is that our budget system will be key as we look at these different scenarios, look at our different opportunities, and you know, they are challenges, and for us to make them be opportunities, it's going to take some real strategizing. And so we will constantly refer to the budget, not only the budget that we have today that we're working under, but future budgets. And we may be discussing budgets that are 4 or 5 years out. So just want everybody to understand that we can never conduct business without that focus on how that impacts the budget. And so so just get ready for that common thread that runs through all the business that we do. What I wanted to do when it was suggested that we do a workshop is to find a way to cut through the discussion a little bit on what everybody's vision was. And as we suspected, everybody has a different perception. And so that's what we're going to look at, and that's the sheet that everybody got late this afternoon, where I've just summarized the responses that we got. Now, there's some responses that I didn't get, and so those of you that didn't respond, you just have to participate with your voice and let us know what you're thinking. The first thing that I asked for, and these are points of discussion, was what are we going to do short term? We talked last week about that we needed to be looking at what we were going to do now that the bond has failed, and then ultimately the lease agreement we have where we are today is going to expire. I think it's in November. And so as you can see on this sheet that I put together, there were numerous suggestions that we renegotiate that lease. There was a couple of them that thought that we ought to go about it 2 or 3 years, possibly actually with 1 or 2 years options on the back end of that, because we don't know at this point exactly how that long-range planning is going to be. But one thing's for sure, we can't have a bond for at least 3 years. So for us to negotiate for a 2 or 3 year with optional extensions on the back end of that, maybe something that we really want to do. So any discussion? Sam? Mr. Ethan?
Yes, after listening to a citizen presentation made earlier this evening and listening to Councilwoman Ty's description of herself, I started realizing that there are some have-to-haves, right? When I start trying to put in a plan for where I have a lot of options, one of the first things I do is what is absolutely required, what is have to have, right? And then you can come up with different terms, and then at the very end, these would be these would be nice little extra bells and whistles. But when I started listening to the couple of comments about safety issues, And I look back at what Mr. Dinsmore did, and I found out that we have fire safety issues. We have asbestos issues. And we're asking our employees to work in conditions that are not safe. So I'm thinking that we might need to put those concerns at the top of our list because those are immediate. We at least have a lease that'll get us to November. Okay. These are immediate needs. And now that we've identified them, I feel it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we address those, and those need to be the first and most important needs that we get to.
Anybody else have any thoughts? Mr. McCabe?
Sam, I do agree with you to a point. The police department, the fire department, looking at the pictures, it has to be upgraded. I mean, there's no female locker rooms, there's no separate restrooms, there's no separate anything over there. And, you know, we currently have an assistant fire chief that has no locker room or no restroom over there. As well as if we had a female police officer, they don't have their own area over there. So yes, we do need to do those immediately. However, I think City Hall is another immediate need. If it's up in November, we don't even know if they will extend that lease. And if they do extend it, is it for a year or 2 years or 5 years? So I think we do need to at least start that discussion. That might be our simplest thing to take care of. So if we can say, hey, are you willing to lease it for another 5 years? And they say, yeah, no problem. That one's done. We can quit worrying about that one. But if they come back and say, no, we're looking at selling it when y'all are done, I think that is going to become an immediate need right now, because we have to have a place to put those staff members. We have to have a place for citizens to pay their bills and everything else. So I think the police department, I think the fire department, public works, and City Hall are 4 immediate needs that we do need to handle right now.
Ashley? Ashley?
Yes, ma'am. Elaine, can you finish going over what you were speaking about? Is there like a consensus on like what whoever filled out the forms that you sent did, you know, is there, you know, did any of us say, one, fix the City Hall, you know, or did any of us say get the, you know, did we go, 1, fix the City Hall, 2, did we want everybody to, you know, move the police, get a new police station? Can you just finish discussing on what you found out? I mean, since you asked us to fill it out, will you just keep going over that and then we'll discuss it?
Okay. All right.
You, ma'am.
So the first thing that item number 1 was, what is the short-term plan for office space needed by current staff, plus additional space driven by growth, and the financial plan for that? Item 2, I will just go on and give you the second heading. The second heading is, what do we do with our old buildings? What's the timeline, and what's the financial plan? So I divided this into what is it that we need to do to make sure that we have a lease to keep what we do have in place, and then we're going to move on in the second section to address those concerns that Mr. Eason mentioned, and that we do have some immediate needs. It's just in a different category. So I'm just going to say, I really think that at this point that we could say about the lease that we would ask our administrator to get with the owner of the property and see what our options are. I think that's the only action that we need to take on that. So I'm not sure that I can ask for a motion to do that in my capacity. I think maybe that's something the mayor needs to do. Carmen, you have some suggestions how we can conduct that?
You get off mute there. I really don't. I mean, it's really up to the council. Y'all can decide how you want to proceed.
I think if it's just the city administrator looking into something, I think that's something that we can just direct them to do. I don't believe we need a motion to do that. So I think just at the direction of the city council, if staff can reach out, find out what lease options are, if they're willing to extend lease, maybe find out what their overall plans is with the property and bring that information back to council.
All right. Ashley?
I know whenever it's renewing a lease for a short-term lease, and actually I can look it up in the contract, it's usually double the lease, but I can look it up in my email because I have the contract that Cynthia sent to me prior, and I can look to see what if it does say in the lease contract. But that's the only thing we need to consider if we do renew the lease for a short-term lease, if we do renew it, if it's just a short-term lease, do we want to pay the higher price? So just throwing that out there.
All right, and I think that as we move down the discussion sheet that we have here, I think that we may conclude that a short-term lease is probably not what we're looking at. As we go through these different things and the things we can do and that we can't do. So, Cynthia, if you'll put that on your list of things to do, since I know you don't have anything to do, that'll give you something else. One of the things that was discussed in here in this same section then is to make it a short-term lease. And one of the problems with that is that they suggested a short-term lease, and then they wanted to immediately begin the renovation efforts on Old City Hall. I don't know that we can immediately begin to do that for a couple of reasons. One, the city council has not taken any action on the assessment of that building and then getting the plans drawn up. And also we've not talked about how in the world we're going to pay for it. So, because it's certainly not in this year's budget. So I'm thinking that maybe a short-term lease for the city staff would be difficult to make that work for us. But Cynthia knows the situation, and she's going to do due diligence. She's going to visit, check out the facts, and then she'll report back to us. Mr. Eason.
When we talk about extending the lease or having a new lease, we can get a modular building and lease that, and that would provide us something that was ADA compliant, male, female, it's all up to code, up to spec, and it could be something that we could lease. I had gotten some paperwork and made it available to everyone. Michelle, I can make sure that you get a copy of that. So that's an option, because when we start talking about some temporary place, we can lease a building, right, for a year, 2 years, so that we can, even 3 years, so that we can then position ourselves for another bond in the future. Okay, and that way we're not going through a major renovation. Okay, that same modular building could be something that we purchase.
There, that also has expenses to make that modular work. You've got to have dirt to put it on. You've got to tie it to its utilities. You've got to take all of the office needs there, whether it's Wi-Fi, telephones, all that would have to be moved. So there's some additional expense there that's not only the cost of the building or the rental of the building or the purchase of the building. Also, that's not in the budget either. So just throwing those thought processes out there. So let's move on with this.
Elaine Ashley has her hand up. You probably can't see her.
Miss
Okay,
Elaine.
Ashley. Sorry.
To Sam, I know that you're interested in the modular building, but to that, I don't think that it's fair because we don't allow modular buildings in the downtown area into Old Town Rome. So I don't think that as well. So that one I'm not in favor of. So as well, and to Elaine, it's not in the budget. Plus, is the dirt. And I looked at it when you presented the information. So.
Well, just a comment here. We don't have to have it in the downtown area.
Oh, that's true.
It just needs to be in Rome. So it doesn't. We're not locked into the original town of Rome.
Yes,
so,
ma'am. But
remember, this is discussion. This is discussion, but there's some. We're looking at the bigger picture here.
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to just continue on in this first section here. Basically, for the financial aspect of this, there was we are budgeting a certain amount for leasing at this time. Several comments were that we would hope to negotiate for a like amount that we're paying now, or maybe even less. I mean, we're going to ask for less, but that would just continue on. Then the other thing is, what do we do if growth hits us hard? We need, additional people, especially in the administrative side of things. What would we do? Because there is not room to stir anybody in what we already lease. And so, we've talked a little bit about the old City Hall, and we'll have to look at that's still going to be in our discussion as we move down to the older buildings here shortly. There was another suggestion that a possibility that was brought up was the only building that's compliant out of the buildings that we have is the community/senior building. It is handicap accessible. The bathrooms are compliant. It does need the roof the roof looked at, and that building could probably be renovated because it would be a short-term use, generally speaking. I say short time, probably 3-4 years. It would probably be cheaper than doing Old City Hall, and it's something that could be done quickly in that it could be put on the upcoming budget. It wouldn't cost as much. It's already compliant, and it would take a lesser amount of work on it. So that's just another suggestion that's out there. Anybody have any comments now that we've got Cynthia going to work on the lease? Ashley?
Elaine, if I may, after you finish your well-planned presentation here, I want to speak to where I think we could go with the old City Hall. And Sean and I have been in discussion, and certainly it's not an immediate thing, but it would give us something to be proud of and to possibly sell in 5 years or whenever you're thinking a bond may come in. or maybe use it for a community room, whatever the needs were, say in 5 years, but plan for a 5-year, say 9 or so employees up there. But that's later on the agenda.
Okay, and we as we get down to this second section, definitely you're going to hear a lot of comments and thoughts on the old City Hall building. Okay, I'm going to move down to the second one because that's really the meat of the meeting, and that is the buildings that are in distress. So I'm just going to read these so I don't leave anything out here. There were 5 responses. The first one was build a new city complex. Sell all the old buildings, including Old City Hall, Police Department, and School Road buildings. We could use bond money, sell existing properties, rely on sales tax revenue from commercial development. That was one. Another one was, at this point, only focus on Old City Hall. Later, demolish the school and the police department building. Rebuild the police department using a metal building with a rock facade using the rocks from the demolished old school. Other funding opportunities would be grant funding. The third one, the police department needs to be relocated and the old building demolished. Demo the senior building and upgrade the community building. Preserve Old Town Hall. It might be used as a police department. Fire department needs to be brought up to code. The financial part of that would be grants, fundraisers, and donations. The fourth one said, address detectors, emergency exit signs, and roof inspections as soon as possible. And it needs to be on the 2021-2022 budget. The next remark was there needs to be a new bond in 2023, and that's 3 years out. Between 2001 and 2003, all buildings should be structurally evaluated and determine if they are worth saving. If they are not, either demo them and use the land for a large facility, or sell the school road property and build at a different location. All of the budgets for 2021, 22, and 23 would be affected. That person also said, save Old City Hall through grants and the 2023 bond. The Old City Hall can be used as a community meeting center, economic development / Chamber of Commerce, or sold as Rhome's historic icon. In other words, if we invested some money in it, then maybe it would be an easier sell, and I think it's the point here. The last suggestion was, remodels are usually riskier than new construction. You never know what you're going to find when you tear into the walls and things like that. Probably all old school road buildings should be demolished and a new multi-purpose center considered. The funding on that would be a GO bond for financing. So
what is a GO bond?
I'm sorry?
What is a GO bond? Is that a special?
The general obligation bond.
Okay. So it's basically a bond with whatever the current interest rate is.
Correct.
Okay.
So in this, I could see several themes. One is that everybody is very sensitive to the fact that City Hall, the old City Hall, is a very usable building. We understand that at some point, it may not, if we were to build a large complex, then we might not need it. But if it got to be too much for us to maintain and really have not a functional value to it, then it could be sold as referred to as a historical icon in the town. In other words, it would stay historic no matter who uses it. And so we would want to make sure that the safe is still there. We'd want to make sure the plaque is still outside the building, that kind of thing, if that was something we wanted to take care of. The other recurring thing that was in this is that the overview, the assessment information that we received last week is not all that we need. We need to have these buildings inspected to truly understand, is the police department, is the fire department, are those buildings so structurally decayed and dilapidated that truly people are in danger of being in the buildings to do work there in the meantime while we look at making possible repairs. And without having that kind of assessment done, we really don't know the answers. So that was a recurring theme in the responses, is that we need to deal with the immediate. Some of those things, as was mentioned before, was the detectors, the emergency signs, roof inspections. We already know the damage that water can do. We already know that it can turn into a horrible, expensive mess. And so to get in the dry is one of those critical things that we need to do. Those are some of that I perceive as being top things that we can do and that we should do. In the meantime, we need to do an overall assessment with those buildings. Are they savable? And if they're not savable, if they're dangerous for our staff to be in there, then we're going to have to take emergency action. I mean, that's the short of that. Where's the money going to come from? It's going to take, as we saw here by suggestions, it's going to take creative thinking. We would be naive to believe that we're going to get donations, that we're going to get grants. Grants only are awarded one time a year, and it depends on which one you're applying for. And they don't care about our budget needs. They care about when they do them. And so we're at their mercy as to when they're awarded. And then, but we're naive if we think that we can do all of this, do the research we need, and not affect our budget. It is going to affect every budget until the problem is solved. So I just want us to be aware that it's going to be that way. Now, we have some options as we look at the budget. We've got a couple of bonds that are going to be paid off in the next couple of years. We may have to adjust our tax rate to stay even with that revenue coming in. Instead of the bonds falling away and our revenue decreases, those bonds may fall away and we have to increase the rate and try to keep that the same, so it's not a heavy burden on the taxpayers, but at least it would give us some money to deal with these very important issues as quickly as we could. So those are the recurring themes. And so I think that we do have to identify what is our perception of what are the most important things and how are we going to go about it. So I think that's really the major discussion. Joanne, you want to go, would you like to share what you wanted to?
Yeah, I don't know, Kirby, do we need to go to the next item formally? We have item C under old business, discussion and any necessary action regarding the old city hall renovation and estimated cost. When I got elected as mayor, one of the first things I was hit with that is a priority is find a place for our city administration offices to move to live in, and of course, to be clean, ADA compliant, and all the proper words that you would use. I went into the old city hall and saw the devastation, if you will. There is no floor on one half. Rafters, maybe we could have a fancy new high level building, with a tall ceiling or something. 2 restrooms, one that is 99%, if not 100% ADA. When the council was in half of that meeting, it was, and I don't have the numbers here, but 1,300 square feet, give or take. And what I'm proposing, that we take both sides of the building and program it in to let us stay until we can get a bond in 5 years or whatever it looks like, and add, say, for 9 offices. Now we've kind of got 5 up at, well, they're not really good offices, but we've got places to sit 5 people in the current city hall. So what I did, I called 3 contractors, unbeknownst to each other, and whether or not they'll even bid on the old city hall, and walked with them one by one, not in unison as a group, asked them to not do anything that would affect a bid at some point, but give me an overall estimate, and really a loose estimate as to what it would take to bring back. And as I talked with each one of them, we talked about ADA, do this, do that, paint this, new air conditioning, fix the back wall where water seeps in. It was a pretty impressive what all they said. Well, you need to do one of these, 2 of those. And within the estimates that I got, it appears that we could get that all done, for including bringing fiber optics in and the phones and all that. We're probably looking at $250,000. Now, I talked with Josh today because evidently we have how I think this would go down. Okay, we decide to do this. We would meet with Cynthia and her people and some of the council, all of the council, sketch out what would work. Where would you like water? Where would you like court? Blah, blah, blah. And then once we get kind of what we want, have a person that draws plans come in and give us semi-formal plans, if you will, enough we could go out for bid. And then go out for bid. But Sam, let me finish. Do you have something quick?
Well, I'm wanting to know what kind of engineering qualifications these contractors have. Because
okay, now I'm getting to that.
When we start looking at our ordinances, there's specific tasks that have to be done, and throwing out a number like $250,000, you talk about we can do it on the cheap. Doing things on the cheap is how this city got in the place where it is.
Sam, I didn't say on the cheap. I said at a better price. And also, I have been in touch with Sean Densmore, who knows everybody should know about building and everything. And if we go with a formal planner, I don't mean somebody that's taken drafting at the high school. I'm talking about formal people that know what they're doing. Sean seems to think, and again, we'd verify all this, you get a professional planner that says so big and so wide and do this and do that. Then you get a structural engineer to put his stamp on that. Then we are free to go ahead. Again, we'd have to have the inspector, we don't want to say, okay, well, let us know when you want us to open the door. No, we'd have to have an inspector looking, watching as progress goes along. Now, again, if y'all think this is not doable, let me know. I really think it is, and I think it would give us an investment in the city for some building at some point to go. We would not have to throw money out the door to lease a building that is too small, that is hazardous to get into and out from the front. I just think it's doable, and I would like y'all to give us the authority, us being Sean and myself, the authority, and for Cynthia's money bags over here, we'd have to mess with her too. Can we try it? Ashley?
Yes.
Ashley?
Yes, ma'am. Mayor, the process, I agree to give you and Sean and Cynthia to walk the building again and to go through the process and get bids. I think that is the best option, is to get bids, get the different contractors in there, and if they're all on the same page of if it's $250 a square foot, $275 square foot, I think gives us an idea. To have that building is the best option for us. There's other cities around town, especially like Justin, Haslett, they're working out of a small building like that. For 4.78 square miles, we're a small town. I mean, small in the area. We're growing around us, but right now that's all that we have. And I think it is the best option for us. And if construction starts, we have 9 months. We can be in there in that time frame. I mean, houses go up pretty fast, and I think we can get in there. Another question I have, and I don't know if you can answer, and is Sean on the phone with us right now? Cynthia, do you know?
Sean, are you there? It shows he's muted.
He's here.
Oh, okay.
Okay, now he's on. He's alive now.
Sean or Cynthia, maybe someone can answer. Did the police department, could we move them into the senior center temporarily if we were able to do some get the police department a new home? Or Elaine, do you know that?
Let's stay on one subject, please.
Okay,
let's don't jump in yet.
Okay, sorry.
Joanne, let's stay on Old City Hall. Okay, let's stay there.
I'll come back to that one.
Oh, I just have a question, Joanne, for you.
Sure.
I'm not talking to you as a facilitator right now. I'm talking to you as a city council person. My difficulty with what you've explained to me you'd like to do, and believe me, I want to save that building. I do. You can ask anybody around that is one of those things that I just think it's one of the better parts of Rome. I do. But we are charged as a city council with doing our due diligence before we begin to talk about letting out a bid. You've had people go through there. You won't tell us who they are. Did they give us any kind of a written report that tells us all the things that need to be done? I have difficulty accepting that as being the structural inspection that we need before we can ever let out a bid. And so we've asked who those contractors are, and you've said no, you won't tell us. You say that you don't have any reports for us because it was an informal moment. And so that's, I just feel like that we're skipping vital information and responsibility to have that kind of reliable information. And so I'm going to be a lesser number. I want it to be lesser, but
well,
at the same time,
it could grow. But if we had good plans and a structural engineer that looked at the plans, also, of course, was familiar with the building, would that satisfy your requirements?
I don't know that it satisfies the city's requirements. We've got some hands here, just a second. Mr. McCabe?
Thank you. I just want to kind of reiterate Mayor Pro Tem's sentiments a little bit. Between the old City Hall and the flour mill, those are the foundations of Rome. And we have to preserve those buildings somehow and in some way. I don't think, though, that the old City Hall meets our current needs or even our short-term future needs because of growth. And then also with the contractors that you talked to, Mayor, I feel that since you did bring that up in an open meeting and you provided those numbers, that you need to provide the names of those contractors as well, because I would have a hard time putting out a bid to any other future contractors or engineers, knowing that those people could have possibly had a preemptive view into what would be needed. So I would feel that any of the people that you have previously walked through there would be automatically disqualified from putting in those bids, and that needs to be on record. So I think we need to put these contractors on record. So that
And
they
Elaine,
I'm talking, please, Mayor. I'm always respectful and I don't interrupt anyone. I expect the same, please. So I would like to officially ask you who those contractors are so that they can be on record, because, and Carvin can correct me if I'm wrong, they would be disqualified from any future bids. They've already looked at any of those properties.
and I disagree because we did not take them in to give a bid. We take them in, and Josh, all three of them came pretty close. I mean, I'm saying within 20, well, one was less than 200,000, one was 200,000, and I can't remember the other, 217,000 or some such thing. So that's why I kicked it up to 250, because, you know, they didn't know we need 50 outlets on this wall and the ceiling reworked or anything like that. That's why we need to get with the staff, develop a sketch of what we want, how we want to be laid out, get with a formal planner that says, okay, we can do this. And then structural engineer, and Sean and I have talked about this, if he'll put his stamp of approval on it, go out for bids. If it comes in to be 900,000, we don't have to award it. If it comes in to be 250,000 with an excellent contractor, we might need to look at finding the dollars to do it.
So
Like
you
this is
said,
your meeting.
Oh, wait just a minute, please.
we're
The
having a discussion,
question,
please, Mayor Pro Tem. We're having a one-on-one conversation about something I ask questions about. I have follow-up questions, please.
I was just going to ask Carvin to respond to your question.
Sorry,
Mayor?
I had a question for Carvin.
Mayor, you said you did not take these people in, but then you turn around and said that you did take them in. If they don't walk around if they don't walk around in the property and they don't fully well know what is needed, like Sean provided, our public works director, how can they give us any kind of bid if they know nothing about what is needed on the inside and outside? But let alone from that, they've already had a preview of what is required, so they can give us a better estimate or better numbers than anybody that doesn't have that information already. So I think that those people are automatically disqualified from any future bids, and they need to be on record. Now I am done with my conversation. Mayor Pro Tem, if you have anything, please.
Miss Elaine, can
Carvin, you've been asked a question by Councilman McCabe. Would you please respond?
Yeah, I would not take the position that those contractors are automatically disqualified. They have been given an advantage, and any other contractor would certainly be able to complain about that advantage that they have been given. But it is possible that we could correct that by allowing other contractors similar tours, similar opportunities, and similar time frames to make themselves familiar with the property as much as these other three have been allowed. So there is a possibility that if a fourth or fifth contractor felt like they had been disadvantaged by the process, they could challenge the process, but I'm not prepared to determine that they're automatically disqualified at this point based on what I know.
Well, Carvin, I think because of the type of building it is and what needs to be done, we would need a pre-bid conference anyhow.
We likely would, and we would likely allow any potential bidder to come onto the facility and get a tour and visit, have the city administrator walk them through and visit with them about our proposed needs. At this point, we don't really have a list of needs, and we don't have any instructions or anything to ask them to bid on yet. So we're still premature in the process.
Yeah, very, very, very premature.
So before I go to you, Ashley and Michelle. So the question then we've asked Sean, which he's not had a chance to respond here yet. So Sean, what is the process that we are required to do in order to get the assessment that we need to move forward?
I don't know if it's a requirement, but industry standards is that as city council will need to direct staff to seek possibly an architect or somebody to come up with the plans for this facility. Then we can move forward with a plan design or something like that. But without a direction from city council, we really can't do anything.
So what about the list that we need, of what is needed in that? Don't we need some sort of paperwork that clearly describes the scope of the work that needs to be done there?
That's where you get the architect involved, and the just the same way, like the same process that y'all went through with the old school building is almost the same process we would need to go through for the old city hall. So just think about how y'all went through the old, trying to rehab an old building at the old school is the same way we should be doing it with the city hall, through the same process. Have like a group like Quorum come in, how we're going to design this, and again go through the proper bidding process, and they put the plans together, and then all the specs are together, and then bid that way.
Okay.
And that would put everybody on the same page,
Okay, Michelle, did you have any question?
I did have one. Do those buildings need sprinkler systems? Does Sean know?
It's a very good question, and I do not know the answer, but that would have to be for the part of our preliminary for the old city hall. Now, I don't know, Sean, how does sprinkler systems fit in?
It's based on the square footage of the building, and I would like to defer to either like to the fire department or because it's going to have to be based on the fire code and the plumbing code. And I'm not up to full speed, but I think anything that's over 6,000 square feet has to have those a sprinkler system. And so I don't, yeah. And it all depends on if there's a firewall between our building to the next building. Again, we're getting into like some weeds I'm not 100% for sure on the fire, on the fire side. That'll be through the fire code. But I do know, I believe that is like 6,000 square feet. And I do think if we do start doing remodeling in the firehouse, that might trigger a sprinkler system in the firehouse. Again, I would refer back to our fire chief and also our building official on those.
Chief Fish, are you on the line? Anyhow, those are, definitely, it's a good question, Michelle. All that would have to happen.
Yes, Mayor. Fire Chief Darrell Fitch online.
Okay, did you hear the question about the old city hall specifically for a sprinklers, then move on to other buildings? And
Yes, ma'am.
Sean said you probably would know better on the rules and regs.
Yes, ma'am. Sean was correct on the 6,000 square foot. It
Okay.
starts at 12,000 square foot for IFC 2015, but then we go off a COG amendment, which puts us down to 6,000 square feet. There's a lot of other factors in there too. There's special use factors. So each building would be different. So we'd have to treat each building different as far as which ones will require sprinklers, even if it is under the 6,000 square feet.
Okay, like for instance, say if we add together the two sides of the old city hall, and I've forgotten, but say we have 2,500 square foot would be okay for that building. Now, fire station might have to have them.
For the most part, when you have connecting buildings, there's a lot of factors. So it's hard for me to just come out and say yes or no. We would have to go through the code books, and we'd have to, because there's certain factors that steer you in different directions, and we'd have to go through those algorithms to make sure that we're going in the right direction.
And I understand that it's separate walls that separate the attorney's offices from our old city hall.
Yes, that's my understanding too, because it would be able, it's able to stand alone.
Right.
Any other questions on the, like I said, I wished I could just give you an exact answer, but you're talking about, hours with our nose in a book going in different directions with algorithms, trying to make sure special permit uses and all that other stuff and occupancy and dealing with that, but we can narrow it down once we get an idea.
We can overcome this, and I think let's see if we can possibly save that old building and find a decent, good place. Now, I made a flip comment. We don't want chandeliers and granite. And I walked next door to the attorney's office, and just to let them know that they'd see people coming in and out of the old city hall or whatever. Guess what they have in their hallway is a chandelier. I thought, oh, good Lord, but they said they inherited it. But what they have done, and I don't know what their square footage is, they have you walk in the door, there's a receptionist, and they did a long hall for the full length of the building. And on each side of the hall were doors opening into the hallway. I have no idea if that's anything we want or not.
Okay, we've got several hands here. Councilman Eason.
In that this conversation has been quite interesting, I think we're going down a rat hole. What's the budget that we've got for the next, say, 10 months? Let's identify how much money we've got. Because what I'm hearing is, even if that fictional fantasy number of 250,000 were good, right? Do we have $250,000?
We do not, according to your city administrator.
That's right. So why are we going down this rat hole?
Well,
let's find out how much money we've got, and let's start thinking in terms of what we can do with the money that we have.
Mayor.
Which I'm told is zero, so we don't even need to do this. Yes, well, it's Elaine's meeting, Ashley, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Mayor Pro Tem, can I ask a question? Because I've gotten skipped over like 3 times. Can I ask a question regarding money? If we were approved for the bond, which I know that our citizens said no to the bond, but we were approved the money, and please help me if I'm not right. If we were approved for the $4 million bond, can we take any amount of money out of that $4 million? So say, for instance, and just help me, can we take, say, $1 million or even $500,000 of that bond money and utilize any of that? 'Cause since we are approved for it, and take that money and see if our citizens would like to use that to remodel the old city hall and possibly the other buildings. Could we use that?
I think I'm going to take a little bit different tact other than a direct response to that, Councilwoman Majors. We have the capacity. Okay, our bond counsel has identified that we had the capacity for additional debt for the $4.6 million bond. Now that was, if you remember in the bond project fact sheet that we put out, that was going to be at a projected potentially 10% increase on the INS rate, which is the debt service rate of the tax rate. So essentially there's that capacity that you have. Now, the way you asked the question, and so I just want to be clear, I mean, we didn't go out for a bond, so we don't have that money. So it's not like we're taking something of what we never got. Do we have the capacity to be able to handle that debt? Yes, we did. I don't know if that answers your question. One thing I would interject, because I know there's a whole lot of information that you all have to digest to really get to the best decision that you need to make. As you know, we're going to be having a longer workshop, more like on a Saturday, like the end of February, beginning of March, where we need to evaluate this whole thing, these needs that we have, but we're also going to be going back to that comprehensive development plan. And we're going to have that workshop where we look at where we've been, what we've accomplished, what are those priorities yet to be accomplished, what other priorities have arisen, what has shifted, how do we reprioritize those priorities, evaluating the amount of debt we have, what the budget is, and that is in the context of the budget for next year. And of course, projecting the next 2 years like we normally do. So I think taking action on one item when there's several, this is a priority as well. I'm not saying it's not, but there's several priorities. So it probably would be a good idea to evaluate all of this in that context.
Cynthia, what level do we have certificate of obligation? What is the top of that amount before we have to go for a bond or an election or whatever?
Well, on GOs, you have to have an election, certificates of obligation. You don't.
Not on all levels. I've been told that there's a certain breaking point that you do not have to have an election for. And maybe I have misspoke.
Okay, I guess I'm not quite clear on what your question is.
Okay, if we sit down and we need money and we want to issue a certificate of obligation without a vote, what is the top of that?
There's other factors in that equation that we would need to evaluate, but
just ballpark it then.
Again, I mean, I can't just answer that off at the top of my head. I want to give you accurate information.
Okay, Cynthia, could we get a certificate of obligation for, say, $200,000? I'll ask that one for Joanne. I mean, or say $400,000. Is there any way to get $400,000 without?
Well, you have, I mean, I think that the question is, do you have the debt capacity? And so, yes, you do.
Okay. So
let me just make that copy. According to the bond counsel, when he advised us last year with the bond election. So, yes.
So I'm just asking, just because I am learning as I go. So So we could get 400,000. Now, how soon could we get the 400,000? Because the next thing I'm going to propose to the council members is, so how soon can we get it? And then I'm going to say something else. So how soon could we get $400,000?
Well, we'd have to put those documents together. We'd have to get with our bond counsel, put those documents together. And I mean, when we talk about a bond, it's like a loan. I mean, in simple terms. So you have to get those documents together.
Okay. Are we talking 30 days, 2 weeks?
Well, I'd say, okay, so I would say more than 30 days, 30 to 60 days off the top of my head.
Okay.
Well,
But it would not.
It would
Go
be
ahead,
more
I'm
like
sorry.
if we wanted to to get it together to remodel the old city hall to get y'all out of the new city hall. And then, so then we could start the process to spend what we are spending on our lease at the new city hall to then fix the police station. And then once we fix that one, fix the fire, and then get another something to fix to, the fire department. Then I propose that we can sell land, which I like the person, whoever said sell, maybe the land that's over where the old, whatever happened, the sell land. I say whatever these pocket parks that are going up around town, I think some of them, I know that a person that is actually my neighbor is not in favor of the pocket park that is going because there's no parking. Selling land. I mean, I love parks, but I think there are. So I think selling some of the land to utilizing that. So could be an option. I mean, money's money. And right now, when you don't have money, it could be an option. So I think that could, buy us, a new city, a new police department. So I don't know. So that's just an option. We're talking only about the city hall right now. So we'll come back to that at a later date. But, but anyways, thank you, Cynthia, for asking the question. I think Michelle's next.
Well, let me jump in there and just remind the council that to dispose of parkland or public property, we would probably need an election. I mean, it would require an election to dispose of parkland.
And if that hadn't been dedicated for park though, wouldn't we be okay?
Well, it's not really dedication. It's just, has it been used or has it been designated as a park?
It has not. Well, the one I'm looking at, there may be others.
Michelle's had her hand up for a long time.
Thank you, Carbon.
So say we get, I'm sorry.
No, I just want to make sure everybody knew that you were going to speak.
So we get the 400,000. Are you saying that we pay back the loan through selling the land? How are we going to pay the loan back?
That's one thing. There's usually 2 ways in management that you cut expenses. One is employees. 2 is sell something. So the only thing we got to sell, I think, is, and we don't have much of that, would be land. So that's where that's coming from, Michelle. And
Okay.
if you think of something else, we're certainly open.
Well, the other thing I would say is when you're looking at a bond, whether it's a GO bond or a certificate of obligation, you are calculating, you're amortizing that debt over how many years. And so that is going to determine how much each year you're going to pay back. And that would be, if this is something that the council wanted to go forward, that would be something that we would have to calculate into the budget each year. Like this year, I mean, we've got two bonds that are going to be falling off in 24 and 25 respectively. And right now we're dedicating, I think I looked at it today, $200,000 for one of them, for example, as a payment. So that's how you would factor it into the budget.
Well, you would factor that, Cynthia, am I correct? If it's a 20-year pay, do you do all 20 years of it on year one, or do you stretch it out?
Well, yeah, you stretch it out over 20, 30 years, whatever the period of the loan is. And that's, that's principal and interest. And
that's the amount you would budget, is what you're paying off, not the total every time.
that's the amount you would factor into your budget each year. And that you've got to be looking at your debt rate, the INS, you've got to be looking at your maintenance and operations. I mean, so you're looking at all of those factors when you're developing your budget. So we have capacity in our debt service to do that, okay? But you do have to make decisions and prioritize what you want to spend the money on during the budget. That's why I'm saying right now, I think, we're talking about a lot of very heavy items, and just to kind of throw out and make a quick decision to go this way, it might behoove us to really look at all the needs and make sure that we're going down that right path, and we've got our finances identified. Potentially, like Councilmember Eason said, you got to start with the money. Let's see what we can actually afford. So I think having these discussions we need to do, but we also need to make sure that we're not making a rash decision. So I think give staff some time to get you some information that you can consider, bring back all the different priorities that you guys have already identified in that comprehensive development plan, and put them in the context of the overall need for the entire city. And it may end up that you guys come right back to this, this decision. I don't know, but I think it would be a good idea to do it in a thoughtful, orderly fashion.
Correct. All right. The other person that has their hand up is Councilman McCabe.
Thank you. So I know everybody's throwing out different ideas of paying stuff back. Mayor Pro Tem and Cynthia, you both mentioned the bonds that are coming off. And Mayor, you're correct. There's two options when it comes to business management. You can lay people off or you can sell some stuff. But as a city, we do have another option, and I know it's not popular and I'm never for it, but we can raise taxes to help pay for that stuff. I'm just saying there is other options out there for paying stuff off. What I think, though, is that we're still getting too far ahead of ourselves. As Sean, our Public Works Director, said, we need to get someone like Quorum out here. We need to get an architect out here so that they can look into what we currently have in that place. What is our future growth, our future income? There's so many variables that are going to go into this. We can't say we need an obligation for $400,000. We need a bond for $5 million to do this. We have to get that exact number. So I can't remember off the top of my head, how much did we end up paying Quorum to come out and do Old School? Anybody remember?
I'm thinking total was close to 100,000, but Josh, I could well be wrong.
So say it takes $100,000 to, it takes $100,000 to get an architect to come out. Now, that's the money that we need to come up with at this time, is how are we going to pay the architect to even come out and tell us if it's even feasible to rebuild this old bank or, old city hall, or is it feasible to rebuild this, or is, because of structural engineering, we can't even use that, or for future growth, that's just not going to work. I think right now we need to discuss getting the money to pay the architect to come out and tell us how much it's actually going to cost before we do anything else.
And Josh, are you saying the discipline that we could not use a planner to draw the plans, a structural engineer to stamp them, that would not be sufficient?
I think according to our public works, we have to do this the exact same way that we did the drawing that we did for the other bond. So we have to put out RFPs to get an architect to come in and look at that. So no, we can't have, a regular citizen or a staff employee draw those plans up and an engineer just look at the plans and say, yes, that works. You need the architects who has the architect, the structural engineer, the concrete guys, they all need to come out on the property and tell you what you can and can't do. That's what we need to do. That's the money we need to come up with.
So Sean, do you agree with that?
I would feel more comfortable, as Josh laid out, is that we do the architect and to let us know what we need. And two is, again, we'll spend this much money. Are we planning on being out here keeping this thing for 10, 20, 30 years? So that's one thing we need to look at. When we start bringing architects in and doing a full-blown project, the expenses are going to get high. Is this city hall going to be,
Is it going to be worth
meet our,
it? Yeah.
yeah, is it going to match our growth for 15 to 20 years? When you start spending $400,000 on these old buildings, is it best to invest that money in a new structure somewhere else?
And I hear what you're saying, but I think, and who knows, y'all guys know better than I do. In 5 years, would we be projected to outgrow it? If we say made it for 9 offices or whatever.
I can't imagine we wouldn't outgrow it with the rolling V coming in. And as those properties get built, they will become part of the city. Yes, we would outgrow it in no time.
Elaine, may I speak?
Ashley, yeah.
Mayor, may I speak? I don't see, which I understand that that you're saying that we're outgrowing it, but again, they're rolling V. I mean, are they going to come in and pay, Sam, and you can answer this, are they going to come in and pay their water with us, to us?
They will have water bills because they're going to be on our water. That's the agreement that we have when they come in. We supply the water.
Okay, so they are going to pay their water to us. Are they going to get permits for when they build a swimming pool? Are they going to, so will they get permits with us?
Just like every other citizen, yes.
Okay, I'm just confirming. So yes, so they are going to get everything. So so they're going to come in and, utilize, the city hall. I'm just asking because when you're saying the growth, then I'm making sure that they are, with that coming in, since they're not going to pay our taxes. We're not getting anything from them.
Yes, they're going to have property taxes too when they get annexed in.
We're
so
going to
be paying property taxes too.
We're annexing them in
as they are built, as it's built out, and as the people are there, they will get annexed in. Eventually, it will all be long term. It'll all be eventually inside of Rome.
Okay.
And the thing is, if we don't come up with something, right? And I think that 3-year bond, let's get 3 years, let's see what we can do to get 3 years down the road. Okay. And let's try to come up with a real bond. Because I like Cynthia's idea. Perhaps we can come up with a certificate of obligation. And we could change our ordinance to allow a triple wide, and we could put a triple wide out in front of the old high school so that we could have some place for City Hall. But because, they have water, they have sewer there. They have electricity, that we can get electricity there. We can get a certificate of obligation, just get a small loan, put in a modular building to get us through 3 years, and focus our efforts on another bond in 3 years. Now, another question is, we can't go after another municipal complex for 3 years Does that mean that we can't have any bond in 3 years? Because now that we've got this evaluation done, we may be able to get a different kind of bond, a facilities upgrade or a facilities type bond. I don't know the law. Counselor Adkins, you could probably tell me what the types of bonds that we're prevented from applying for, but we might be able to put a bond in front of our voters in May that tell us, okay, you wouldn't give us 4.7 million, but here, how about 5 million so that we can fix the PD? I'm just throwing options out there, okay?
The general limitation is that you can't go back to the voters on the same question. Doesn't have anything to do with the dollar amounts or anything like that. It's just you've asked them the question, they've answered it, and so you have to sit back for 3 years before you present the same question to them again.
So if we were to say that we don't want to put in a municipal complex, we could put out a bond in May that says we're going to refurbish the police department, we're going to refurbish the fire department, because those weren't on the bond, okay? And we're going to build a city hall someplace else. I'm brainstorming here, guys, okay? But we could put a bond out for that, right? Now we'd have to hustle to get it on the election in May, and we'd all have to try to support it as best we can. I'm just throwing
I think that I've been told that anything to do with our buildings is not allowed for 3 years, but that's something that Cynthia could check with the gentleman that was our bond information person and get some clarification on that.
Elaine, can I ask a question? Or Sam, can I ask a question?
Wait a minute. Cynthia's getting ready to respond. Just 1 second.
Oh, yes, I think that would be a good idea, to let me get with our bond counsel, just, so we're not just kind of throwing stuff out there. Generally speaking, I mean, I think, Sam, that's probably along the line of what's allowable, but I think it would be good to have our bond counsel here. And that's, you were talking about a GO because you're talking about a general obligation bond. So you're talking about going out for a vote. Again, you do have the option for certificates of obligation that don't require a vote. So, there's options out there. I think looking at all of the options that are on the table for the priorities that we have in the context of all of them, looking at, having our bond counsel on hand and looking at our options for what we can do would be a good idea at this point.
Hey, Ashley?
Yes, ma'am. Carvin, do you recommend anything? And do you have an answer quickly instead of asking the loan officer to Sam's to Sam's question?
No, I do not have a quick answer. And I'm not qualified, frankly. Bond counsel is a very, very specific kind of lawyer, and I would have to defer to them on answering that specific question. I've been around them enough to be dangerous, and I would suggest that you would have to be very careful about how you crafted it. The bond counsel is the one who crafts the election language and submitted it back to us. And so we would have to submit the proposed language back to bond counsel, and bond counsel would either approve it or not approve it based on whether they thought we were in violation of the law.
Okay.
Don't forget too, we also have, and we've used in the past, Mr. Martin, John Martin is our financial advisor. He's not bond counsel. He's just a person who specializes in financial and, city finances. And he's also available for Cynthia to consult with. Boy, I just violated major rule there, didn't I? But anyway, the bottom line there is that she can visit with him about all the different options. And if you want to put the charge to your city administrator to come up with a list of financial packages, then he could probably do that and bring that to you. Obviously, we need to give him some time to get that done. And I would be very surprised if we could get it done in time for the May election. But you're going to have to do that at some point anyway to let him map out for you the various options that are available. And a bond is just one of them. I mean, we've already talked about 2 or 3 different ways of financing this.
Well, let's have that bond council at the next meeting and put that on the agenda.
Well, again,
Or
there's
John.
there are 2 different individuals. Our bond counsel is one, and then John Martin is our financial advisor, and he's not an attorney. He's a financial advisor and specializes in public finance.
And our next council meeting is the 28th, and I think that might be a little bit soon.
Why? Why is that too soon? We're on a clock. Cynthia, we're on a really tight clock.
I understand. Okay, so again, as Carvin has said, I mean, do you want the bond council here? Because that's going to be more like a general obligation bond that you're going to go out for a vote, or are you looking at different financing mechanisms and different packages that we can look at? And that would be John Martin. So
I think have both of them there so they can provide us the expert counsel so that we can make a decision as soon as possible.
I concur with Sam. I think we need both of them in case we have follow-up questions, whatever. We got them both there on retainer and talk to them.
Okay, so guys, so Sam, are you asking, so just so we're all on the same page, to bring back to the beginning, are you wanting to remodel, do the whole construction on the city hall, the old city hall, get a new police station, and then remodel the fire department? Is that what we are all wanting to do? Or what is it that you were just asking? What is it that you brought up?
I was brainstorming
Okay.
ideas. I was not saying that's what I want to do. I'm saying let's come up with options and let's have the finance people there to tell us what can we do?
Okay.
What are the numbers for a certificate of obligation? How much could it be? What could we do for a bond? What's it going to take to get it on the May election?
Okay.
Let's find out what our options are, because if they tell us, no, there's no bond in our future.
Okay.
Okay, that takes a lot of options out. If the certificate of obligation, if the best we can do on that is say 400,000, okay, now we know what and I'm just throwing a number out there.
Yes.
Could be that our credit's so good that we can get 6 million.
All right.
You know?
Sounds great. Now, should Cynthia and Carvin help me? Now, with us getting Cynthia, I know you're on the time crunch. Should we put it in the paper to start accepting bids for the old city hall? No? I see you shaking your head.
We don't have plans for them to look at to do a bid.
Okay. Well, I just didn't know, so we can see like how much it would even cost to, if it's the old city hall, for them to walk in the old city hall just to see how much it would cost. I know Sean has already, walked with his contractor, so he kind of already knows that the roof needs to be repaired, the ramp out front. So I didn't know if we needed to have other contractors to take bids. So then they know how much money we'll actually need. So do we need to take bids or not?
I would say no, because we do not have plans.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to weigh in on the same. You wouldn't be able to compare apples to apples from the different bidders because you haven't given them any plans to bid on. If you just take them and show them the facility and ask them to give you a bid to make this, nice, then we really have nothing to hold them to when they give us a bid of whatever number they give us. And then you're going to make yourself vulnerable to them coming. Once, you know, if you were to award the bid to somebody, then you're going to be vulnerable to them coming back. Well, that's not what I bid on. I didn't offer to build you a new roof. I didn't offer you to build a sprinkler system. You know, that wasn't in my bid, and now you're stuck, you know, with change orders and the potential that the project gets way out of hand financially because you didn't properly bid it in the first place. So we really do need to get the bids as precise as we can, because that's what we're going to be relying on later when we come back to them and say, build us this exactly the way we've drawn it up.
That sounds great. Thank you, Carvin.
All right, Michelle?
And we are still going to make sure that we have options when it comes to the lease building, how long we can lease it in case all of this does fall through.
If you know, to kind of recap the things that we've talked about and the directives that we've asked Cynthia to do, she's going to check on the lease. She's going to make sure that at our next meeting that we have some financial advisor type information. We need that financial information so we can determine how much money we have, which will help us determine then which buildings we want to look at and what actions we need to take. And so, because we are money driven here, then we will, but no action is going to be taken tonight. This is all conversation. Maybe at the city council meeting after some information, maybe we will make motions and set some priorities. But that's what we've charged our administrator to do, is be ready for next Thursday's meeting with certain information, and she's going to research that and have those two financial people there to give us some really good advice on what we need to do next. Does that make sense? Ashley?
Sam, I know that you're very interested in getting your modular building, and you could ask Rolling V if we could put it on their property. And possibly if they would like to, you know, purchase one for us and put it on their property. So just throwing it out there for you.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
In fact, you bring up Rolling V and PMB. I was going to toss that out there earlier. Has anybody approached PMB and see if they want to donate to our cause? They might be willing. They might be willing to throw in some money.
No, but that's a really good idea. So, Cynthia, if you don't have anything to, you know, do this week, if not, I don't mind calling our Elaine, but you know, first is Cynthia.
I just remind everybody the property that's part of Rolling V is not yet in the city.
I know.
We have a developer's agreement that gives us the right to annex it if certain conditions are met in the future, but as of right now, it's not part of the city.
Oh, are they going to be annexed in, like Sam said? Is it going to be annexed in?
It is at the option of the council in the future when certain conditions are met, but they have significant debt themselves as they construct this property, and we would acquire the debt if we were to annex it. So we will have to be very strategic about how and when we choose to annex.
How much debt would we acquire?
I don't know right now.
I mean, what the debt
they passed bonds for close to $1 billion.
So we would have.
What is
Don't you remember the election?
Yes, I
At
remember.
the election, they had bonds for up to, I think it was around $1 billion.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So we would acquire that just to have it annexed back in.
Well, no, we have a right to annex it, and the way it's designed is we would not annex it until the bond debt had been reduced and to a level that we could manage it if we wanted to try to manage it. So we'll just have to pay attention. And obviously, before we'd made any decision like that, we would be in long discussions with them and our financial advisors about whether or not we could service the debt if we took it on. But we did break it down into sections so that we don't have to swallow the whole thing at once. We can take it in parts, and maybe that'll make it more feasible for us to do it. But I mean, that's down the road. We'll have to see.
Oh, thank you, Marvin.
So is everybody on overload? And I think I'm just going to suggest that we stop for tonight. Let's sift through the different things we've talked about, and let's let the staff do their work for us and report back to us and give us more reasonable information. I wasn't kidding. It's multifaceted. It's multi-layered. I mean, it's just this big conglomerate that we're walking around and looking at, the foundation, and later down the road, it's complicated, and we have to be a little patient with ourselves. The other thing we have to realize is the procedures that we have to go through as a municipality take time. It's like getting our financial advisors there and listening to what they say and investigating all of these things so we can make good decisions. The fact that we need some quick answers and big money fast, nobody cares about that particularly except us. And we just have to follow the right path to get to the place we need to be. So we're going to be cautious, and we've got to be smart about what we do, because what we're planning on doing here will affect Rome for a long time, financially, with our facilities, with the direction that Rome will go to as it approaches growth. And so it's a tremendous load that we carry right at this minute. And so anyway, I think we should call it a night. What do you guys think?
Chicken.
Okay, it is 9:40, and do I hear anybody that wants to adjourn this meeting?
I think
I'll make that motion.
Michelle Ty needs to make a
Oh, there
motion.
you go. There you go.
Okay, Sam, I couldn't understand what you were saying. I'm sorry.
I think Michelle Ty needs to make a motion.
So do I make a motion? I'm making a motion to end the meeting,
And
adjourn
I
the
would
meeting.
like to make sure that Michelle comes back to the next meeting after this one, So we're glad to have you, Michelle. Okay, so we have a motion by Michelle that we adjourn,
I second.
and Ashley seconded, vote by hand. Okay, Josh,
Aye.
I've lost my little list of our Elaine
Aye.
and Michelle,
Aye.
Sam, and Ashley.
Hey,
Okay, y'all all make sure and come back and be really super nice one more time to Michelle.
aren't you going to ask Ashley? Ask Ashley?
I said aye.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we
Thank
had a
you,
motion
Elaine.
in a second.
Thank you, Elaine, for a wonderful meeting, and congratulations, Michelle.
Thank you.
Y'all have a good night.
Good night.
Condolences, Michelle.
Condolences. Don't scare me.
All right. Okay, we're going to end this meeting.
Bye,
Thank you.
Corbin. Thank
All
you.
right.
Good luck
Bye-bye.
on your week.